Pay close attention, since the majority won't ever grasp what I'm about to share, and even fewer will possess the self-control to put it into practice. The world doesn't compensate noise. It compensates persistence. Those around you all desire instant change. They yearn for the eruption, the metamorphosis, the striking contrast between past and present. And since they demand everything immediately, they end up with absolutely nothing. They shine intensely for 7 days and then dim for years. However, you will take a different approach. You will become 1% more perceptive today, 1% more resilient, 1% more difficult to deceive, to shatter, to overlook. Merely 1%, almost negligible. The world will not detect it occurring until eventually it cannot avert its gaze from you. This is the hidden truth they never reveal in those inspiring talks and hollow pledges. Power does not come suddenly. It amasses silently in obscurity. As others are occupied broadcasting their ambitious schemes to whoever will hear, you will be occupied carrying out yours with quiet focus. Machiavelli grasped this concept half a millennium ago. Those who govern countries were not necessarily the mightiest present. They were the most enduring, the most self-controlled, the individuals who analyzed the system while others participated without awareness. Thus, prior to proceeding, I ask you to note this precise instant in your existence. Type the phrase, "I am building in silence." Speak it, claim it, allow it to be the initial foundation of an outcome they will never anticipate. For the individual you are evolving into does not plead for notice, does not pursue approval, nor does he justify his actions. He merely becomes unavoidable, and the world reorients itself around him. Second principle, the demise of your former self. Prior to constructing the person you are destined to be, you must enter the one you have been. This is the point where many fall short, as they desire the outcome without the burial ceremony. They want fortitude without submission, authority without renunciation, esteem without the harsh labor of acquiring it. However, no structure can be raised on a base that continues to obstruct. Your previous self, the one who procrastinated, who craved acceptance, who permitted others' views to govern all his actions, that iteration of yourself must perish. Not gradually, not tenderly, but fully. Observe him truthfully for a brief period. The individual who browsed instead of learned, who pledged himself to tomorrow and labeled that self-discipline, the one who allowed his frustration to escape before irrelevant people, yet remained voiceless before those who actually mattered. That person was not inherently feeble. He was unrefined, lacking self-control, oblivious to the fact that each minor decision was silently molding the contour of his destiny. And this is the harsh reality that Machiavelli recognized, which the majority of individuals evade their entire existence. The universe will handle you with precisely the same brutality that your routines permit. Should you be tender, it will take advantage of you. Should you be foreseeable, it will utilize you. Should you be lacking control, it will cast you aside. The instant you cease being convenient, but the instant you transform into a person who manages himself, his schedule, his speech, his feelings, his yearnings, the environment transforms its stance completely. It ceases probing you. It begins holding you in high regard. Since authority, genuine authority, originates as self-mastery before it ever turns into mastery over anything external. Hence today, you carry out the elimination. You annihilate the justifications. You annihilate the ease that has been silently corrupting you. You eliminate the craving for approval from others. You do not even appreciate 1% gradually. You break down your former self and replace it with a version that is sharper, colder, and more calculated. This isn't cruelty, it's building. Every great construction starts by clearing away what existed previously. Therefore, acknowledge this moment of change as a king would signal the beginning of a new rule. Write the phrase, "The old me is dead," in the comments and truly believe it. Because the person who takes his place is accountable only to his own standards, and that's precisely where your strength originates. Rule number 3. Control your emotions or let them control you. Now we come to the battlefield where many men lose before they even grasp that a conflict has started. That battlefield is located within their own heart. Feelings aren't your foe, but when left unchecked, they become the simplest tool for others to use against you. Grasp this concept and you'll comprehend half of human influence. A man who fails to manage his rage gives control of his existence to anyone who can trigger it. A man dominated by fear can be directed like livestock. Someone who craves approval will deny his own values countless times daily merely to avoid conflict. Rest assured, the people near you can detect these vulnerabilities. Just as a predator detects blood in the water, others might not label it, but they perceive it. Then they modify their actions to seize what your lack of discipline has left unprotected. Thus, you need to become exceptional, a person whose exterior shows nothing and whose core stays unshakable. When insulted, you don't flinch. You watch. When provoked, you don't respond. You evaluate. When they anticipate an outburst, you offer a calm silence that unsettles them far more than any explosion would. This is the cool-headed mindset that Machiavelli recognized and the Stoics refined long before his time. Whoever masters his internal condition governs every exchange he engages in. Marcus Aurelius governed the mightiest empire globally, yet his biggest victory was over the space within his own mind. You'll achieve this on a more modest scale. Each day, when someone interrupts you, you sense the anger building, and you allow it to flow through you without defining who you are. When someone shows you disrespect, you observe it, store that memory, and reply according to your own schedule and conditions, not theirs. This isn't suppression. Suppression resembles a dam that inevitably breaks. This is true mastery, the gradual, intentional conditioning of a mind that stops following every fleeting urge, improving by 1% at a time. You construct a fortress in place of your former automatic responses. Eventually, a day arrives when no words from others can unsettle you, because your tranquility is no longer something anyone can buy cheaply. That's when you become truly formidable, not boisterous, not violent, but steadfast. A person in conflict with himself can be defeated by anyone, yet a person at harmony with himself cannot be overcome by anyone. So stake your claim now and type these words: I control what I feel. From now on, do not allow anyone to take your serenity without your consent. Number 4. The strength of deliberate silence. You already possess a tool that requires no payment, yet many people discard it countless times daily. Your quietness. The typical individual can't tolerate it. He stuffs every gap with chatter, reveals every strategy, and publicizes every feeling. He pours out his thoughts to listeners who haven't earned the right to hear them. He confuses speaking with authority. Actually, the more someone discloses, the more their actions can be anticipated. And as they become more foreseeable, controlling them becomes simpler. Machiavelli understood that information acts like money, and those who waste it thoughtlessly become insolvent in the sole economy that counts, the economy of influence. Therefore, you will acquire a skill that very few have: the capacity to hold knowledge and keep silent. In moments of anger, you won't declare it. Instead, you'll make your calm demeanor something others can't decipher. While you're devising a plan, you won't talk about it. Allow your outcomes to communicate after the fact, well past the point where others could meddle. When you suffer pain, avoid showing your wounds openly. Recover away from public view, and come back without giving reasons. An ancient wisdom holds that the noisiest person in any gathering is actually the most feeble, since he's making up for some deficiency. If he were quiet, it would reveal that no truly strong individual has to occupy every silence. He allows others to speak, and as they do, they lay bare every detail, their anxieties, desires, weaknesses, and clues, all while putting on a show. Meanwhile, you watch and take note as they inadvertently confess. You accumulate information. This isn't callousness without reason, it's consciousness. A person who listens more than he talks collects insights that the chatterbox will never possess. Knowledge forms the bedrock of all the leverage you will ever possess. Observe the way influential individuals navigate a space. They don't hasten to make themselves heard. They are patient, allowing dialogue to approach them. And when they eventually say something, their utterances hold significance simply because they haven't been squandered on trivialities. Limited availability increases worth in finance, personal connections, and communication. Anyone who is perpetually accessible, constantly justifying, and always responding reduces his own value. An individual who is careful about what he says when he shows up, and how he responds becomes uncommon. And uncommonness earns a regard that plentifulness can never achieve. Therefore, work on this gradually, just 1% at a time. During your next argument, speak less than you feel inclined to. When you feel thrilled next time, keep the announcement to yourself slightly longer. When something provokes you next, allow the quietness to extend until it makes others uneasy, but not you. You'll notice the transformation right away. Observe how others incline forward. Notice how they attempt to occupy the space you've left empty. See how your self-control acts like a force that draws the whole room toward you. Being quiet isn't a lack of influence. Rather, it's influence at its most refined, the noise of someone who doesn't have to persuade anyone about anything. For he already has a clear sense of his own identity. Hence, make that commitment right now, prior to the urge to reveal too much coming back. Write down the phrase, "My silence is my strength," and starting today, let your calmness become the most prominent aspect of you. Number 5. Discipline, the sole liberty that truly counts. Now we reach the cornerstone underlying all our previous discussions, the one trait without which everything else becomes hollow theory. Discipline. Grasp this fully, for society has deceived you regarding the true nature of freedom. You were taught that liberty is about acting on any impulse at any moment, without obeying any constraints or timetables. However, observe those men who adopt that lifestyle, and what do you see? They are prisoners. They are enslaved by their cravings, by their emotions, by every fleeting urge that seizes their focus. A person who consumes whatever they desire ends up trapped within their own physical form, and someone who labors solely when motivated creates nothing that endures. The individual who constantly seeks ease eventually awakens to find that ease has stealthily taken everything from him. Genuine autonomy, the sole form of liberty that truly matters, lies in the ability to govern oneself. To commit to a choice one time and stick with it, irrespective of your current emotions. To rise at the time you promised yourself you would rise. To continue laboring even when creative drive has vanished. To maintain your position when every fiber of your being pleads for you to abandon it. Such is the liberty held by the self-controlled individual, which the self-indulgent one can never attain. Because he is guided by an internal compass, no external force can rule him. Machiavelli noted that luck prefers those who are ready, that opportunity compensates the person who has developed himself before the time of need arrives. Discipline cannot be called upon during a crisis if it was not crafted during peaceful times when nothing was on the line. Self-discipline is developed exactly when there are no observers, when there is no recognition, no payoff, no one to see your work except you. This is precisely why it is both uncommon and formidable, because very few are prepared to undertake the unappealing, monotonous, hidden labor of becoming dependable to themselves. And here lies the harsh reality that most people dodge until it is no longer avoidable. Motivation deceives. It shows up when it is unnecessary and leaves when it is desperately required. It is a visitor, not a cornerstone. You cannot construct an existence upon something that fluctuates with your emotions. Discipline is what endures after motivation departs. The stark, unshakable pact you form with yourself and decline to alter. For this reason, you cultivate it gradually, one small increment at a time. There is no necessity to transform into a steadfast ascetic instantly. Your task is to honor one minor commitment to yourself today and repeat it the next day. Continue this pattern until honoring commitments to yourself becomes your most instinctive behavior. Rise 15 minutes sooner, complete the assignment you would prefer to quit, and perform the routine you dislike. Every minor exercise of self-mastery is an investment in an account that grows, and the dividends it yields are beyond monetary value. Dignity. Since each instance you fulfill a pledge to yourself, you demonstrate that your promise holds weight, and an individual whose commitments are significant to him becomes someone others find difficult to influence. The uncontrolled person is subject to the whims of the environment, whereas the self-controlled person shapes the environment according to his plan. The former is pulled along existence by his urges, while the latter advances through it following his own rules. Therefore, make a conscious decision at this moment about which of these individuals you aim to embody. Write down the phrase, "My freedom lies in discipline," and allow each minor exercise of self-control today to serve as evidence of the person you are gradually evolving into. Sixth principle. Approach the study of human behavior as a tool. You now need to acquire the self-control that distinguishes the person who is exploited from the person who is never taken by surprise. The continuous examination of human nature itself. The majority of individuals go through existence utterly oblivious to those surrounding them. They accept statements as literal truth, confuse charisma with integrity, and assume that a person's speech defines their identity. And because they decline to perceive people objectively, they repeatedly fall victim to identical tendencies, astonished at each occurrence. Gaining no insight, you will not belong to their ranks. You will analyze individuals like a tactician examines a battlefield, not employing skepticism without reason, but utilizing lucid, objective vision that recognizes reality instead of what you desire it to be. The major sin Machiavelli committed against the tender-hearted was just this. He portrayed humans as they truly are. Rather than how they claim to be, he noted that, in general, self-interest motivates most people. Fear influences them more consistently than love does. They are swift to commend you when you meet their desires, and even swifter to desert you once you stop. This isn't justification for despising people. Rather, it's a cause to comprehend them. After all, the individual who grasps how the system works is the one who never gets destroyed by it. Thus, start observing people's deeds, not their words, because behavior is the sole truthful dialect a person uses. Anyone can vow allegiance. Pay attention to who appears when there is no benefit to be had. Anybody can declare they have integrity. Notice how they behave toward individuals who are unable to offer them anything. Observe where someone's focus drifts when they believe nobody is watching, as that indicates their genuine priorities. Study how they manage minor authority, because that foreshadows precisely how they will manage major authority. Note what triggers their defensiveness, for the injury they guard most strongly is the handle by which they can be influenced. None of this is intended to deceive the blameless. It's meant to shield you from those who would exploit you and to identify them well in advance of their attack. For here is what the inexperienced never understand. The world's predators rely on your lack of awareness. The schemer requires you to accept his statements without question. The sycophant needs you to crave compliments. The exploiter needs you to mistake his focus for fondness. Once you see with clarity, their whole scheme collapses, since every strategy hinges on your misperception. Without comprehending their behavior, insight into human nature becomes a suit of armor that no affront can penetrate and no allure can circumvent. Examine the recurring behaviors. Then you will start to foresee individuals before they move, and you will distinguish those who are faithful from those who are simply useful. You will detect the betrayal taking shape before the traitor himself completely realizes it, and you will assess the atmosphere, the coalitions, the grudges, the silent rankings, while others remain confined within their own trivial preoccupations. Such is the silent strength of the one who watches. As they act out, you discern, and discernment marks the start of mastery. Also grasp this. Analyzing others constitutes merely half the effort. The individual who comprehends everyone else except himself remains a threat to his own well-being, as his personal blind spots turn into vulnerabilities. Other people take advantage. Therefore, direct that same steadfast scrutiny inward. Learn your own stimuli, your own cravings, your own conceits. For the aspects of yourself that you reject to inspect are exactly those that will be weaponized against you. The completely conscious person, cognizant of both others and himself, navigates life akin to a chess master. Among individuals who have no idea they occupy a chessboard, he foresees and readies himself, seldom caught off guard and never gullible. This wisdom does not come from one brief session. It results from the gradual gathering over a whole lifetime, one piece of noticing after another. Become 1% more astute daily, thus commence today. Observe more often than you talk. Perceive more than you disclose. Study the being known as humanity until hardly any of its actions can take you off guard. Commit these words to memory. I observe what others overlook. From now on, ensure you comprehend everything that happens before you. Rule number 7. Accumulate power before you need it. You must now understand a principle that governs every kingdom, every empire, in every life that has ever risen above the ordinary. Power must be built long before the day you need to use it. A foolish person waits until he is drowning to learn swimming. He waits until bankrupt to consider finances and until ill to focus on his health. He waits until betrayed to think about loyalty and until powerless to wish he had built power. By then it is always too late because power cannot be summoned instantly. Power can only be accumulated slowly and deliberately during the long, quiet seasons when nothing seems to happen. Machiavelli understood that the prince who survives prepares in peacetime for the wars he knows will come. Every person of consequence will eventually face their crisis, and the only question is whether they meet it already armed or hopelessly exposed. So you will not wait. You will build now while the sky is still clear, the reserves you will draw upon when the storm arrives, and the storm always arrives. What is power truly? It is not the loud display that the weak imagine. Power is leverage. It is having options when others have none. It is the skill that makes you valuable, the money that makes you free. It is the network that opens doors, the reputation that enters the room before you do, and the self-mastery that keeps you steady when everyone else is falling apart. Each of these is built the same way, not in dramatic leaps, but in patient, unglamorous accumulation. Skill is built one practiced hour at a time, long before anyone pays you for it. Wealth is built one disciplined decision at a time, long before you feel its protection. The network is built one genuine relationship at a time, long before you need a single favor from it. And here is the part the impatient person never accepts. The building phase looks like nothing. It feels like nothing. There is no applause for the one quietly preparing, no recognition for work no one sees. The world will not notice you stacking these advantages. That invisibility will tempt you to quit because human beings crave immediate reward and despise delayed payoff. But understand that the invisible phase is exactly where every powerful person was forged in years when underestimated, overlooked, dismissed as ordinary. He let them underestimate him and use their blindness as cover while they enjoyed their comfort. He was compounding advantages in silence, 1% at a time. The gap between him and them widened into a gulf they could no longer cross. Then one day the situation demanded strength. A crisis, an opportunity, a single decisive moment. While everyone around him scrambled, panicked, and wished they had prepared, he simply reached for what he had been building all along and acted. That is the difference. Not talent, not luck. Preparation that began when no one was watching and no one believed it mattered. So learn to value the long game in a world addicted to the short one. Build the skill before the opportunity. Build savings before the emergency. Build the body before the illness. Build discipline before temptation. And build alliances before the war. Every advantage you stack today is a weapon you are placing in your own hands for a future version of you who will desperately need it and either thank you or curse you depending on what you do right now. A person who prepares ahead navigates crises with a frightening composure, as they are never caught unprepared. Meanwhile, someone who neglects preparation spends their existence in reaction, pleading, and chaos, perpetually lagging behind a world that is not obligated to them. Opt to be the pioneer, allowing others to pursue instant gratification and label you as slow. But you are not sluggish, you are gathering strength. What you are constructing is a silent, accumulating strength that can neither be stolen nor imitated. Type the phrase, "I am building my empire." May each unseen brick you place today form a foundation that catches them off guard. Point 8. Sever your attachment to the viewpoints of those who are weak. Now you need to face the unseen shackle that has restrained more individuals than poverty, defeat, or any external foe ever could. The overwhelming, smothering craving for validation. Since birth, you've been conditioned to pursue it, to scan the expressions of those nearby for consent, to make yourself smaller. This was done so that others would be at ease, to temper your drive to avoid appearing conceited, to lower your brightness, so that those who are dull might feel less inferior in your presence. Consequently, the majority of individuals live their whole lives as captives of others' judgments, putting on a show for spectators who neither care for them nor can assist them, and who will erase them from memory as soon as they depart. Every choice they make is filtered through the perspective of other people. Will they give their blessing? Will they mock me? How will others talk about this? Eventually, they lose any sense of their own desires, having surrendered their entire identity to a collective who are equally confused, equally frightened, and similarly bound by that same craving. You will shatter this chain, for it's impossible to be both strong and hooked on validation. These two states are mutually exclusive. Machiavelli knew that a leader attempting to satisfy everyone ultimately has no authority over anyone. This craving for universal affection is a vulnerability that shrewd individuals will ruthlessly exploit. As soon as others recognize your longing for approval, they gain control over you. They can dangle their acceptance like a tether, observing your contortions to regain it. Therefore, you must take an action that will initially seem rather counterintuitive. You need to become unconcerned with the views of those who haven't merited having any say, not with animosity, resentment, but with indifference. These are markedly different. The resentful individual still cares excessively. His fury is merely a disguised form of seeking validation from a wounded place. The genuinely detached person, he simply refuses to allow the masses any influence over his feelings or actions, because he has found his value within himself, not in the capricious emotions of insignificant people. Recognize exactly who it is you are liberating yourself from. It isn't your real guides, the scarce individuals who have journeyed the path and gained the privilege to counsel you. It also isn't the few who sincerely desire your success. You are breaking away from the feeble, the onlookers who have created nothing and taken no chances. Still, they believe they have the right to critique anyone who ventures to attempt. These are the people who ridicule the fighter in the arena from the security of the bleachers. Their sole strength is disparagement, and their lone consolation lies in seeing others remain as diminished as themselves. Why would you ever give people who have themselves failed the power to judge your life? Their disapproval isn't a caution. It's frequently a guiding signal. It's because those who are weak feel most endangered by the one who rejects remaining weak with them. Their criticism of your ambition arises because your ambition reveals their own lack of progress. When they ridicule your self-control, it's because your discipline indicts their overindulgence. Their response is seldom about you. It's about what you expose within them. So allow them to speak, to question. Let them murmur. Their chatter has no effect on a man who no longer requires their praise to feel authentic. And you will encounter a curious paradox. Precisely when you cease seeking approval is when you start to earn respect. People are nearly irresistibly attracted to the man who doesn't require them. A person who can't be flattered also can't be shamed or manipulated by the fear of rejection. His magnetism stems from his freedom, and freedom is the most scarce and appealing attribute a man can have in a world filled with performers craving validation. So cut the chain bit by bit, 1% at a time. Today, make a single choice based on what is right instead of what will earn praise. Then do the same tomorrow. Condition yourself to require nothing from the masses, and observe how the masses start to chase the man who turns his back on them. Write these words: "Their judgment has no power over me." And from now on, let the criticism of the weak land on you like raindrops on bedrock. Transform into an unbreakable man. Now we come to the last stage of forging, the trait that consolidates everything you've built and solidifies it into something the world can't shatter: resilience. Because grasp this with total clarity. You can control your feelings, wield your silence effectively, develop self-discipline, analyze human behavior, amass influence, and distance yourself from the fragile. Yet life will still hit you when you're not ready, even after you've done all the right things at the moment you least deserve it. A trusted person will betray you, loss will strike unexpectedly, and plans you spent years constructing will fall apart in an hour. This isn't pessimism, it's the raw truth every resilient man finally embraces. And embracing it marks the start of true strength. The weak man constructs his entire identity on the assumption that life stays smooth. He is okay as long as everything proceeds without trouble. Thus, he is at the mercy of every situation, every misfortune, every harsh twist of fate. But you will establish yourself on an entirely different base, not on the lack of difficulty, but on your ability to withstand it without shattering. Machiavelli described fortune as a raging river that floods and devastates, unconcerned with human intentions. Yet he also noted that the prepared individual constructs his barriers, his embankments, and his channels. So when the deluge arrives, he isn't carried off like the others. Your resilience serves as that protection. It's the profound inner certainty that no matter what happens, you will face it, absorb the impact, and stay upright. Not because you're unbeatable, no one is, but because you have chosen beforehand that no strike will be allowed to finish you. This distinction separates the individual who is ruined by his pain from the one who is strengthened by it. The same heat that liquefies the weak hardens the strong. The same force that breaks the brittle forms the diamond. When adversity targets you, and it will, you won't squander energy asking, "Why me?" You won't sink into the self-pity that devours average men. You won't plead for the world to be kinder than reality. You will perform the single action that distinguishes the unbreakable from those who are shattered. You'll rise repeatedly, as many times as needed, until getting back up becomes an ingrained part of your being. So the world no longer bothers to knock you down. What your adversaries, skeptics, and situation dread above all is not your achievements, but your unwillingness to give up. Success may be stolen, money can vanish, and status can be removed. Yet a person who refuses to remain defeated poses an insoluble problem. No strategy works against him, no obstacle ends him, no failure he cannot turn into the next stepping stone. You cannot overcome someone who views every stumble as a lesson and every scar as protection. Over time, he becomes almost terrifying to those who attempted to destroy him, evidence of their inability. And you construct this just as you have built everything, incrementally in minor challenges, well before the major test comes. The small obstacle you decline to let spoil your day, and the critique you take without breaking. The tiny defeat you face with chilly, composed determination to restart. Every such instance is practice for when the actual tempest arrives, and then you won't be making it up. You'll merely be performing under stress what you've rehearsed 1,000 times in solitude. Therefore, accept the toughness of the journey now. The person anticipating comfort is crushed by reality, whereas the one expecting hardship cannot be taken aback by it. Choose now, before the challenge comes, that you are finished being someone life can shatter. Allow them to observe you fall and get back up repeatedly. So they finally grasp the reality. You aren't fortunate. You aren't indomitable. You are merely indestructible. And that's much more perilous. Right. I cannot be broken in the comments, and let every difficulty from now on encounter a person who has already resolved to triumph. Number 10. The person you are destined to be. And so we stand at the conclusion of the speech, yet the start of all that is significant. This is the instant when theory ceases and the individual takes command. Observe how far you've come during this one session. You discovered how to enter the former identity that wavered and sought approval. You gained control over feelings that others once turned into weapons against you. You uncovered the strength of calculated quietness, the unshakable liberty of self-control, the icy lucidity of perceiving human behavior for what it truly is. You acquired the skill to accumulate influence before it's required and to separate yourself from the judgments of the feeble. You learned to be someone that adversity can hit but never shatter. And this is the unifying reality. None of it occurs instantly, none whatsoever. The person you are evolving into is not forged in a single flashy metamorphosis. He is constructed in the unremarkable stillness of 1% daily. 1% more astute, 1% more robust, 1% more resistant to control, more difficult to unsettle, more difficult to overlook. So minute that society won't observe for an extended period until eventually it's unable to divert its gaze. That's the whole mystery. And it has always been the mystery. While the restless flare up and diminish, you will accumulate quietly as they pursue the flash. You will amass your domain, and they will later question how you grew so calm, so skilled, so unfazed. And they will remain oblivious that the solution lay concealed in countless unremarkable days they were too preoccupied to see. Don't delay for the flawless instant, since the flawless instant is a falsehood the feeble repeat to excuse never starting. The time is present, this day, this very hour, with whichever minor disciplined action you can perform. Make one commitment to yourself prior to retiring tonight, then make another commitment tomorrow. Commence the compounding process and have faith in it just as you do in the rising sun, for its certainty is equal. An individual who enhances himself by 1% daily becomes, after just 12 months, virtually indistinguishable from his former self. After a few years, he emerges as a presence that those who previously disregarded him cannot grasp. You will turn into someone unreachable, not due to the world turning softer, but because you grow unyielding. It's not that the hits cease, but that they no longer strike at vulnerable spots. Such is the man we've been constructing, step by step, layer by layer, silent, disciplined, astute, ready, dispassionate, and indestructible. He is no illusion. He is the certain outcome of your actions from this moment onward. So start, and when you do, type those words one more time in the comments. I'm turning into an untouchable. Let that be your vow and your commitment to yourself. If these words resonated with you, then take this step. Hit like on this video.